Hi, my name is Erin Perkins, and this is my case study for EDL 851, where we had a teacher who reacted negatively to a personal evaluation. Basically, in quick summary of this case, as principal was conducting his evaluations for the year, he walked into Mrs. Stevens' room, saw that she was struggling with some student motivation and engagement. Kids are often noisy in her class before he comes in, and even when he is there, they struggle to participate and be fully engaged in what's going on. He pulled her in for a conference after her evaluation, and during that she seemed unwilling to hear suggestions or was really hard to communicate with. He makes another observation later on, sees really nothing different. Based on these observations and interactions, he uses a very simplistic evaluation tool that he has at his disposal to give her poor marks and recommend that she not be rehired for next year. When he conferences with her to share this news, Mrs. Stevens gets pretty defensive, argues that she's never really been supervised or offered any advice, and says she intends to fight this review because she deems it to be unjust or unfair. So some of the legal or ethical issues that we're looking at here, Mrs. Stevens is probably in the right in the fact about not receiving a ton of supervision or any concrete interventions. From what we know anyway, what, this is something that you need to implement in your classroom or try this or that sort of thing. We haven't heard that that's really concretely been offered to her, which would be in her favor as to why she hasn't felt supervised. The principal's basing all of her teaching skills also on these two observations, or so it seems. And in my district, especially if you have a new teacher, in my opinion, observations happen kind of at the beginning of the year, so that you've given a chance to have some thoughts and see what the individual might need to start an improvement plan if necessary, or just to get them going, jump-starting to continue to grow professionally. Someone would not only be rehired if they fail the improvement plan, or if a grave, serious ethical offense took place, not just because of one little subjective evaluation tool thing. Also, the evaluation form is very scant, lacking detailed evidence for actual observed behaviors, which would make it easy to fight against any markings that have been given. There's no solid criteria that we know of for giving each ranking, leaving it very open to being subjective, which I would also find to be one of the legal and ethical issues that is going on in this case. So bottom line, what we're looking at here, Mrs. Stevens has received a subjective evaluation that would not renew her contract, that she disagrees with and plans to fight as unfair. So the people we have involved here then obviously are Mrs. Stevens and the principal, the two that are kind of specifically at odds with each other. You have the students in her classroom who may or may not be receiving the education that they need or deserve. You've got the school board, potentially HR involved as well, as to what is going to happen with Mrs. Stevens. This seems to be a school district where specific evaluation, more detailed evaluation procedures are lacking. Some things that we don't know, though, for sure, too, are more of the demographics, which could change things, as well as the program, the grade level content. Those things would be helpful to know when it comes to offering concrete interventions and being able to work with Mrs. Stevens more effectively. I kind of gather, though, as far as this place goes, that if you're a good teacher in the district, they'll keep you. If you need help, doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of room for growth or opportunities for guidance unless you seek them out yourself. It's kind of the error that I'm left with. Anyway. So when I look at prioritizing this information, you're looking at, if you continue to use the same evaluation tool, effects that could be damaging to other teachers or future teachers. Your decision and how you handle this could be damaging to you as the administrator and the Board of Education for not having anything more solid or stronger when it comes to evaluation tools and how easy, so to speak, it might be to get rid of someone. How this is dealt with becomes really important to the students in Mrs. Stevens' room and the type of education that they could receive, the parents of the students in her room as well, any other staff who's undergoing the evaluation process, and your own credibility as administrator, how you handle this situation and what you're willing to do for someone who may be a poorer teacher, and how you can work with others to, or how you can work with that teacher to build her up. Ultimately, that's what you're looking for in your staff is someone who is going to be highly proficient. People that you should probably be consulting would be other administrators. Have you run into situations like this before where you maybe have a teacher who seems pretty standoffish? How would you really go about if you did need to let them go? Or if they've also run into a person who's been disgruntled about their evaluation and how to proceed from there. Also contacting your central office staff to keep them apprised of the situation, potentially get advice from them as well would be helpful. Based on this, I kind of see 3 different options. You can do nothing, which would lead to potential hearings because she has said that she's going to continue to fight this. And then if it goes in her favor, you've got a disgruntled employee potentially returning. You could potentially choose to use another evaluation tool. Say, hey, if you found this one to be unfair, then let's pick something that's going to be more concrete and lay some things out better. And these are the things that I'm going to observe you on. Do you need the board's approval to use that tool? You probably for sure need her agreement to use that new tool, especially mid-year. You could also start an improvement plan, which could kind of give her that you need to fight for your job here a little bit, offer some more concrete interventions, and be more involved in her classroom, potentially reverse your decision if that's something that potentially could be possible. Shift myself for a minute and we'll shift back. Pros and cons to doing nothing. Well, you have no further action and you could potentially hire more qualified staff, but a con would be you could lead to hearing your business hasn't been taken care of in-house and you're looking at a potentially unethical situation going on. That's what I would see. Pros of choosing another evaluation tool, it would give you something more concrete and less subjective. The cons, however, is that it's going to take more time. You probably won't meet your evaluation deadline, and you need to be able to agree on evaluation tool in order to make this an ethical decision. The pros to having an improvement plan, you're going to be teaching the teacher and offer some professional growth. It's in her best interest, and it's also going to give you more concrete data and be less subjective. Con is it is going to take more of your time. Time is precious, and it is going to require you to take much more documentation in the steps that are going on in her classroom and what you're doing to help each other out. In my opinion, the best option is an improvement plan that does use actually a less subjective evaluation tool with identified interventions to be put in place and observable criteria to be met. This is what I would choose to do in this situation. I think that the evaluation tool they're using right now is pretty scant. It doesn't really lead you to any black or white conclusions, and that needs to be happened. And after that first conference with her, when you feel kind of things negative going on, say, well, hey, these are the steps that we're going to walk you through and take you to show some sort of improvement. And if not, then you and I are both well aware of what could lead to your job or not your job anymore. When I go to implement this decision, I want to work with the Human Resources Department just to make sure that we are following protocols of what they would expect. I'm going to conference again with Mrs. Stevens, along with HR being there present so that we're all on the same terms and coming to the same agreement here. We are going to work together to identify the areas of improvement and what interventions would correspond with those things. So if it is student engagement, we're going to try different techniques besides just lecturing in class. And here's how you can do those. Here's how those look. If the interventions are, more time on task with kids, again, we could differentiate out what those interventions would be. Set a time frame for the next evaluation to occur after these interventions have been given, and use the new evaluation tool that we've come to an agreement with HR and Mrs. Stevens as well to be able to have concrete data so that you're not basing a decision on hiring or firing based on just subjectivity, instinct, little check boxes about what you feel about as poor, adequate, or proficient. So that is the way that I would like to go, having nice concrete data plans laid out, and then it's more clear, black and white, whether or not expectations have been met, and then there's no room for arguing as to whether or not you've met the criteria to continue to work in our school district or not.